My question this time, Mr. Cabrera. Mr. Cabrera, one thing I liked in your submission here when you spoke to us, it was that these electricity solutions are not consistent across the country, and I agree with you. Electricity in parts of this country is provided by hydro, by nuclear, sometimes by natural gas, which has allowed us to wean off coal and bring down emissions in Canada significantly, primarily in one province or two provinces out west. But I agree with you. You said 2.3 times is how the grid is going to have to grow by 2050. So 2.3 times, 2 to 3 times is where we're going to have to grow. It's a doubling plus. And you're saying that's going to be accomplished with 3% growth, and yet the electricity grid has grown that much already. So it's going to have to continue to grow to meet the growing demand from the increasing use of power in our economy. Now, power in our economy is roughly one-third electricity, motive power, and natural gas for industrial means. So you're going to say that we've got to get rid of the 2/3 that are hydrocarbon-based and build up the other one by 3% a year in order to get to 2 to 3 times? I think we're going to have to get significantly higher. Can you comment on that, please, about how the parasitic cannibalization of the other forms of energy are going to require the electricity grid to grow even further than it has?
Yeah, so when we look at the last 20 to 30 years, we haven't seen that much growth in the electricity. This has been an era of a flat load, basically. Like it's been around less than 1%, 0.7%. I was referring earlier to 7% growth between 1920 and 1960. But also, I want to also highlight a critical point here is that when we say doubling or tripling, there's still going to be around 40% of the energy mix in Canada that is going to come from other sources of energy other than electricity. So even in the most ambitious modeling, you see electricity between 40 to 60% of the energy use. So that means there's still 40% coming from other things. So that includes biofuel, hydrogen.
And what would that be? That 40% will come from?
Biofuels, hydrogen, fossil fuel with abatement, so with carbon capture. So we still see, even in the most ambitious climate modeling, we're not going to see electricity be 100%.
Okay, so there's going to be no extra electricity required to make the hydrogen, make the biofuels, all these other things. It's going to be, again, parasitic on the electricity supply load.
So there will definitely be electricity needed as input, and that's kind of reflective of that 60%. Our position in our organization is that we really need to look at options that reduce that reliance on electricity, including blue hydrogen, for example, which is a way to upgrade natural gas to become a net zero fuel and sequester the carbon. That is a way to ensure that we're not necessarily relying purely on electricity.
Thank you. No, we've heard you said these hurdles are not fatalistic. By 2035 is getting the Western provinces off of natural gas to provide for heat and power for their citizens in minus 40-degree weather. Would that be fatalistic?
So our position really is that a net zero grid is something that we need to work towards as part of our net zero 2050 targets. As mentioned earlier, the current regs that are being discussed in the context of electricity don't necessarily call for net zero by 2035. We've been working very closely with the industry to ensure that the utilities are empowered to make planning that ensures reliability in the context of these regulations. And our position really is that, as mentioned, different provinces are starting from different starting points, and the policy needs to be considered.
Thank you. I'm going to move to back to Mr. McDougall. Mr. McDougall, you talked about Ontario, and Ontario has a $10 billion deficit this year, provincially, prospective. $7.3 billion of that is a subsidy for power production, Ontario Power Generation. $7.3 billion deficit accounts to about $2,000 per household in Ontario that they don't see on their hydro bills. Alberta is the only province where you've got a transparent bill that actually shows you what the cost of hydro is. If Ontarians had an extra $2,000 put onto their hydro bill per year, do you think you would see a little more appreciation for the costs of power across the country?
I mean, that would be very impactful to people's bills, for sure. I think people would feel that. I'm not sure what it would trigger in terms of realizations about the bigger picture of the power system.
Can I go further here?
You're at time. You have 3 seconds. Thank you.